Well, thank you guys. Thanks for joining another Direct Connect with Archer. Brent Castagnetto and Steve Parker, managing partners here with Archer. Mark Brahmstadt, senior vice president, client relationship here at Archer. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to chat a little bit about security awareness. Programs, what makes a good program, what maybe doesn't make a good program, how to improve upon it, all kinds of fun stuff. So maybe a good way to start, and maybe just some general conversation, Brent and Steve. You guys have had the opportunity to, in some cases, run programs, develop them. You've got to witness many programs from clients that you've engaged with over the years. What are some attributes of a great program, or even just a good program?
Yeah, I was just, wait a second. It looks like package delivery failure. Hold on a second. I got to update my credit card to get this package delivered. I'm expecting a check from Nigeria, so I want to make sure it comes through here. No, just kidding.
This gives Mark some editing time.
Yeah, exactly, totally. Awareness can be challenging because it's you're dealing with folks that aren't necessarily technical. You're dealing with folks that don't necessarily care about cybersecurity, or they think it's somebody else's job or something. I think it's gotten a little bit easier recently because it's in the news, right? Everyone hears about things in the news. They are aware of cybersecurity. 10 years ago, if I told people what I did, it was like, oh, that's interesting, but they didn't really get it. And now they kind of sort of do. So making it, I think, relevant to people. Everyone has gotten the text, right? They've gotten the Nigerian email. They've gotten the text from somebody saying, hey, your package wasn't delivered. So they get that. But just keeping it real and relevant in ways that they can relate to, I think, is important.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. Making it relevant, I think that's really the key for your folks. Making sure you're providing fresh material, fresh insight each and every time, whether you're providing the awareness training on an annual basis, on a quarterly or monthly basis. It really doesn't matter. It really boils down to whoever's delivering that program to the target audience, to making sure that it's hitting the mark. You got to hit the mark with your people so that they're aware of the things that are coming out, the threats that exist in the current construct. Steve mentioned the text that he's seeing coming into his phone. I don't know how many smishing texts I'm getting on a almost daily basis now. Those can be tricky. And so helping your people understand and recognize the threats that are out there and the vulnerabilities that exist on their systems, I think is really, really key.
I couldn't agree more on that. And, it's interesting. I think, Steve, you had said it. I think folks are more in tune with it now because it's in the news on a regular basis. I don't think you can watch any news cycle these days, or at least every other day, and not see something to that degree. Maybe another way to ask the question as well on the reverse side, what are some attributes of some very poorly implemented or created programs that you've seen out there from either companies you've worked at or clients you've visited?
Yeah, I'll start with that one. When we as consultants, we're supporting clients every single day and going in year after year and supporting these clients and seeing the same messaging from a security awareness perspective, whether it's don't tailgate, be aware of phishing campaigns that are coming out. It's the same information. It's not fresh. It's not relevant with the times. They're not making their people aware of the potential threat that exists to them. We've opened up a Pandora's box with the Internet of Things, right? And so people think, oh, I can just walk in with my cell phone. But I look at it, if we're not aware of the vulnerabilities that are out there, the threats that exist, and helping our people recognize those, you're going to have a program that falls down. You're not going to be providing that relevant detail that they need to be successful and avoid the real traps that are out there.
Yeah, I'll jump on, a second what you said about being fresh and relevant. I'll give a real world example. I did a mock audit for an entity not too long ago, and I was reviewing the security awareness materials, and they were using posters which were pretty well done. But the copyright date on the poster was about 15 years in the past. So clearly they had been likely using these for quite some time. So keeping it fresh, and like I say, the generic type things are good, but if you can update it with fresh content, we all understand the Nigerian email scam, but they keep varying that and trying to come in new ways to catch people. So if you keep that up to date and say, hey, here's what they're doing this month, here's what they're doing, new and interesting, you might have seen this. It's going to keep people thinking, keep it top of mind in a way that's fresh and relevant and useful, to be honest.
I saw one a threat that was realized by someone on LinkedIn the other day. They had actually mailed a package that looked like Microsoft Office 2022, a new office set up for someone. They'd mailed it to his house with a USB thumb drive that person could then stick in their computer, and they were owned right at that point. And so they're getting more creative. They're figuring out ways. I don't know how expensive that would be to put that packaging together and make it look real or legit. But that was one avenue that they're still using these basic concepts that have been around for 15, 20 years or longer. But they're repackaging, repurposing, and impacting folks that aren't really aware of it.
Yeah, kind of that's probably a better one. A lot of the ones we get are pretty easy to spot and not all that well done. But in terms of receiving things in the mail, personal stories several years back, my wife got hit. We didn't fall for it, but she had actually gotten, I believe, a text message that something was coming. She got a package in the mail. And then she also got emails associated with it, and we were able to link it back to an organization she was participating with. Apparently, the customer participant information was compromised, and they had used that to do a very carefully crafted clone, and then use the contact information to basically prep the victims in a multi-stage con game. We picked it out, but it's very easy to fall for that. They're relying on. If you think that it's only going to come via text message or email, you wouldn't think that, it's a phone call, right? Or you wouldn't think that it's going to come in the mail, but that could happen. So you have to be very, very diligent, and unfortunately, you have to just don't trust anything. Maybe trust but verify. Be very, very careful.
Great insight. In our business, we get the opportunity to work with clients on a couple of fronts. Some just security engagements, and others that are rooted in compliance. And in the electric utility sector, that's NERC compliance. Do you think that compliance requirements have moved the needle on security awareness programs?
I would say no, to be honest with you. I think what's moved the needle on security programs is actual attacks. The SIP standards in particular are very, very weak when it comes to security awareness. You're required to broadcast a message. You don't have to show that it was received. There's no metrics. There's no measurement for effectiveness. Again, you can use that 15-year-old poster that says don't allow tailgating, rotate them every quarter, and you're done. So I wouldn't give much credit to the compliance efforts. I just think, phishing attacks have been happening, and organizations have been getting compromised via that. Now they do the anti-phishing campaigns. So it's more of a reaction to successful attacks, I think, from what I've seen, versus actual compliance requirements.
Yeah, I would second that. I totally agree. The compliance drivers are one area, but they're not driving the overall behavior from a regulated entity perspective. I think the fear of being that on the front page, making headline news, is more involved with driving the behavior from a programmatic perspective.
Now, there's lots of avenues companies go down. Do you think folks should build their own program or buy an off-the-shelf solution?
It's probably a little bit of both, to be honest with you. Like most programs, whether it's a security program, security awareness, or whatnot, the programmatic elements are probably going to be custom designed in-house. But for certain pieces of that, you'll buy a product, right? You might buy a phishing awareness platform. You might buy videos, or you might buy posters. But the actual program that ties it all together is probably developed in-house and probably customized for the organization.
Yeah, I agree, and it depends on the entity and the level of sophistication and what you have in house to leverage. Right? If you've got good skilled people that can help build out, as Steve mentioned, to take what you can buy off the shelf and then customize or configure it based on your needs, I think that's the optimal solution. Is to really customize it to your internal folks, your programs, your processes, and then that gives you more, I think, bang for your buck. Definitely leverage the off-the-shelf tools, recognizing that you're going to want some customization, configurable configuration to ensure that it's meeting the mark from your perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen clients who have gone down the path of solely doing their own thing, right? Nothing off the shelf, and they end up repurposing the same PowerPoint year after year, maybe change the names, change the locations a little bit, but it's not new and fresh. Conversely, I see folks that go buy something off the shelf, quasi-implement it, like many applications these days. People go out and buy it with the best of intentions. They quasi-implement it and say, "Yep, we're doing it now. We've got a great program. We've got a great solution," but they haven't strategically made it part of their overall program. They've made it their program, and that's it.
Yeah, that's the big challenge. If there's no customization or you don't configure it to meet your needs, then it just becomes shelfware at some point, right? You're just you're revolving that same information, repurposing it, reframing it up, and you're not moving the needle, as you mentioned earlier, as far as driving the right behaviors ultimately from an awareness perspective.
Let's talk about that, moving the needle and driving the behaviors. How do you measure success? How do you measure that you're moving that needle in with these programs?
Yeah, a lot of these tools have built-in metrics that you can leverage from a measuring perspective. I think a true security awareness program has that capability in it, right? Built into the program. How do we measure success? Things like the evaluations or the tests, or when you do a phishing campaign and you throw that out there and your click rate is at a certain level, you want that to come down, right? You'd expect that to come down month over month, year over year, quarter over quarter, to ensure that the message is being received. And not only being received, but those that do click on things, that do have a tendency to not look very carefully, you don't want to see them show up in 6 months or a year after that, right? That's how I think one way to measure success is to say, has my click rate decreased over time? And again, I think that might be a simple way to measure it, but it's an easy and effective one to glob onto and say, hey, we're going to do better, or we are doing better month over month, year over year, based on the data that we're seeing.
I've also seen where companies have put it in their organizational success criteria. So their reviews on an annual, quarterly basis at a manager level, frontline manager level, have included these. So it's not a hard number per se. Some of it's anecdotal, but the conversations are continuing to be part of the broader organization, not just the training exercise that was put out there, the phishing exercise that was done, and just those numbers as well.
I've even seen companies do the wall of shame, right? If you are in one of those select groups that has to take remedial training as a result of clicking on a phishing campaign or an email, they demonstrate that. They share those from a manager's perspective or executive leadership perspective. They say, hey, here are the folks in IT, here are the folks in OT, here are the folks in compliance that clicked on these messages. Why are we getting such a high click rate? And that can be a driver for human beings. Again, we're going to often take the path of least resistance, and so you're not going to be careful. You're not going to clearly look at those emails to decipher whether there's a threat there. So just having that awareness and raising that up, it's a double-edged sword. Obviously, you don't want to punish people, but at the same time, elevating that and making sure that executive leadership and senior management recognizes who's falling victim to these phishing campaigns, I think is important.
Yeah, you do want to be careful, again, not to punish folks, and recognize that we're humans and we make mistakes. And I can tell you, I think I'm pretty good at not clicking on things, but there's been times if you catch just the right message at just the right time in context, I think anybody can get caught at some point in time. So you're really looking for trends, right? You're not looking for just the one time somebody made a mistake, but you're looking for trends. Is it a recurring occurrence? Is it a habit? But the measurement is important. There's the old adage: what gets measured gets done. If people know that they're going to be held accountable, it's going to be more top of mind. They'll be a little bit more careful, or at least more aware of what's going on. So it's very important to have some sort of measurement metric in some way, shape, or form.
Very good. Maybe my last question for you all is, how do you drive improvements? What do you do in an organization to make sure that it's not just a quarterly presentation or an annual training class? Where have you seen organizations be wildly successful in continually improving their program, not just implementing one, but continually improving it?
I was just out. I'll give an example again, drawing from my personal experience and kind of not security related, but I got snagged by a speed camera a couple months back. Driving, and it was an area I don't normally drive through. I won't say I wasn't paying attention, but I missed the warning signs. And it's in the city of Portland, and they do this to create awareness, but they focus the cameras at the high crash corridors or high crash intersections. So they're looking where they have a problem, and then they're putting their focus on those areas and trying to drive the awareness and trying to change the behavior through measuring, monitoring, and enforcement. And I did have to go take the remedial traffic safety course, Brent. So to your point on remedial education, so it happens to everyone. But maybe that's an analogy. Right? Focus your efforts on where you're having the issues. Right? Traditionally, it's been phishing, people clicking on email. So we have the phishing awareness. So we need to pay attention to where the attackers are going next, right? Where the next problem is going to be, and then shift your awareness efforts to attack that issue and try to, change behavior and improve your security.
I'd add on to that. I agree, Steve. I'd add on to that in this brave new post-COVID world. If we're there, you still have a lot of folks that are working remotely, right? That aren't in the office, and so the threats that I think are coming next, right, are more the phishing, the smishing, the spear phishing. All of those types of activities are continuing to be, I think, escalated. And to drive improvements there, it's a little bit different than we've looked at it in the past, because now you're reaching out to these folks who are remote and helping them make sure that the things that they're connecting into the network, into the to your company and your corporate environments are secure as well. The BYODs, bring your own devices, is heavily utilized now, and there's a lot of risk that comes in conjunction with that. So helping people recognize early on that, hey, you can't just plug this in anymore. You can't just click on anything a link that comes in. Be aware of things that are coming to your phone, from whether it's a voice or a text or an email. Having that level of awareness and helping people recognize that it's not just the corporate machine that's under attack. It's you personally and your devices that are under attack. I think that's where we get to improving the nature of our programs. We're supporting our folks that are remote.
Wonderful. Well, Brent and Steve, great feedback, great insight. I think back to some of the other conversations we've had, even in preparation for client appointments and meetings. It's are you doing something? Have you developed this overall strategy, and are you aligning your organization and your actions to your strategy? Those are the types of things that will really help your organization move the needle and with direction, and helps in your communication process as well. Those organizations that have leadership involvement in these types of initiatives tend to be more successful. It really is an all-in situation. It's not just the one person sitting in the IT department who got tagged with this. It's not just their responsibility.
I think I'm not surprised at this point, but I was surprised early on with the number of executives that were hit and that had to take that remedial training as a result of a phishing campaign or whatever. They're just as vulnerable as any of us, right? The day-to-day operators. So, as Steve mentioned, recognizing where those weak points are, those pinch points, and then addressing them. That's how, again, that you get that overall improvement in your program.
Well, thank you, Brent. Thank you, Steve. Thanks for another great Direct Connect with Archer. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Thank you, Mark. And I'm off to buy some prepaid debit cards to renew my Social Security number. So
Good for
catch
you.
up with you later.
Good for you.
If you know of a topic or someone you think we should talk to on Direct Connect, please let us know in the comments below.